has been unyielding and changed directions multiple times. Take a look behind me. You'll see the sky is bright orange. They'll simply see something inside sitting on the seat, break the window, and grab the item in 60 seconds. That extra temperature makes traction more difficult. The other ones hit this car. Take a look at this. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 bullets sprayed this car. And just to get folks at home a clearer view of some of those streets that are blocked off, take a look at this chart. Here's Highway 9, 120th, McGuire, and 168th. These are the parameters firefighters have blocked off. The bomb technicians have been working to recover explosive devices. Thousands of those residents are without power right now. And if you look over here, you'll see why. This is one of the many utility poles knocked around by today's tornado. Is it coming?
Oh, it is coming eventually. It's gonna.
Good morning. The time is now 4:30 and we've got all your news and headlines straight ahead. But first, let's take a look at today's weather with Chase Thomason. Chase, my hair predicts rain.
Well, your hair would be completely accurate.
Oklahomans woke up once again this morning to tragedy after another night of deadly storms explode just west of El Reno and cross the metro, killing at least 9, including 2 children, injuring dozens more. Some remain in critical condition. The same storms that spawned multiple tornadoes also brought torrential rains that soon led to massive flooding and people scrambling to find refuge from the storm. And daylight did not bring peace. The rising waters forced the evacuations of hundreds. And sadly, the body of a 10th victim was discovered this afternoon. He was reported missing after he left for work this morning and never arrived. For the second week in a row, families across Oklahoma are once again cleaning up after a string of deadly tornadoes, leaving many homes and lives splintered. Multiple twisters, sometimes 2 on the ground at once, crisscross the landscape, destroying everything in their path. News Channel 4's Jolene Cheney went to one of the hardest hit communities, El Reno. She joins us with more. Along with all the damage from yesterday's twisters, heavy rain caused extreme flooding in several parts of our state. The water so powerful it washed out several streets and is responsible for at least 1 death. Take a look at this picture sent in from one of our viewers. This is the scene just north of Seminole and south of the North Canadian River. As you can see, the road itself looks like a river. This is what's left on one side of the street. Once some of the water subsided, the hole so deep you can only see the top half of this man, making travel in this area impossible. News Channel 4's Bree Steffen is live near Northeast 23rd and Air Depot. Bree, what an amazing sight of that powerful rushing water. Thanks, Bree. Remarkable video. Not far from the sinkhole, dozens of families were forced to run from their homes to escape rising waters. Nearly 200 families at the Riverside Mobile Home Park near Northeast 23rd and Air Depot had to be rescued from the flood. How desperate times forced some families to take desperate measures to get to higher ground. And since that evacuation, officials say the Red Cross have stepped in to help. They set up a shelter. The street address is 100 Northwest Boulevard. The southwest side of the metro was not spared from last night's storms. Officials are still trying to determine if it was a tornado or just straight line winds responsible for most of the damage. Continuing our team coverage, News Channel 4's Shelley Mills went to Mount St. Mary High School where they're cleaning up from the storm. And Mount St. Mary had a fire at the school about 4 years ago. They say, sadly, this actually helps them know how to better handle this situation in the future. And a heads up tonight, because of all the flooding, the town of Crutcho is now under a boil order. This is only for the town of Crutcho. Officials say the water is unsafe to drink and must be boiled for at least 5 minutes before using. While damage totals are still being assessed across the state, we are now learning more about the tornadoes. Meteorologist Troy Christensen is in the Forewarned Storm Center with the latest. Troy? Thanks, Troy. Also tonight, we have a silver alert to tell you about. Oklahoma City Police needs your help finding this man. 96-year-old Claude Tucker went missing from his home near Southwest 50th and Santa Fe. His family reported him missing Thursday. If you see him, call 911. Still to come on News Channel 4 at 6, inside the storm. A storm chaser crew gets caught by a twister and survives it, and it's caught on tape. With the storm chasers credit for saving their lives. Next at 6.
It may have just been a split second or two.
That's the reaction from a seasoned storm chaser after a tornado took an unexpected turn last night and the chasers became the chased. Leading Weather Channel meteorologist Mike Bettis, he and his crew had no time to get out of harm's way. Their SUV was lifted 30 feet in the air and tossed 200 yards in a field.
I talked to almost a dozen victims who say the woman who goes by several different aliases is kind, warm, and trustworthy. Ripping them off in front of their children and leaving them without a place to live was the last thing they ever saw coming.
It's kind of messed up our whole life right now. We don't even know what to do.
Jimmy and Nora Old packed up their apartment weeks ago because they planned to move into a rental property they found on Craigslist.
We met the lady. She walked us through the house and she explained how everything was going to be renovated. We talked to her for probably 30 minutes.
They paid $200 cash up front. Here's the receipt. And a week later, they paid $300 more. They were ready to get nestled in days, but after paying the deposit, the renter emailed them saying the house was no longer available.
Can we get our deposit back? When can we meet you? And no response to meeting us. She said she put it in the mail.
Well, we decided to come to the house, take a look at the property, and see if we can find the owner. And sure enough, we found this sign on the window. It says this house is already rented, but several people have been scammed out of money paid to someone who is not the owner. As the Alts searched for another house, they became suspicious.
We stumbled across another posting on Craigslist that looks exactly like the one that we got scammed on.
I've been speaking with a couple other people through email that they've had the same thing happen to them. And I guess they never got their deposit back either. She's telling them that she's out of town. That's why she can't meet them.
Not trusting the woman they know as Sharon Hill, they had a friend respond to the new post and meet her at a different rental property. We were watching across the street when that friend went inside to meet her.
So is it just you or do you have family?
It's just me and I have a girlfriend. How much is the deposit again?
The deposit's $500.
Do I gotta fill out any paperwork, I guess?
Would you like an application?
Yes, please.
Incredibly, there's another family inside meeting with her at the same time.
Your present address and previous address, but you don't need any credit information.
Here, I'm gonna fill this out in my car though. Is that all right?
The friend who was posing as a potential renter comes out. Moments later, the woman going by the name Sharon Hill peeks out the door. Watching from another vehicle, Jimmy could not wait any longer. He goes into the home and confronts Sharon, wanting to know when he would get his $500 back. She quickly makes her way out the side door. As she leaves the backyard, she tries to hide her identity. Are the allegations true, Sharon? She never utters a word.
Where do you get off, huh?
You met my family, Sharon. You met my one-year-old daughter, and you wrecked us. We have nowhere to live now.
She drives off in this silver Buick with no tag. Within minutes, several families show up ready to look at the house and put down a deposit, a total of 7 that night.
Well, she would have got all these people here. That's what, $5, $10, $15, $2,000? That's more than I make in 2 weeks.
This couple was inside the home when Jimmy approached Sharon. And how do you feel now?
Crazy, and we probably won't use Craigslist.
What did she tell you her name was?
Janet?
Janet.
Yeah.
She's Sharon to you. We checked records with the county assessor's office. Neither home is owned by someone named Sharon or Janet. In part 2 of our investigation, we tracked down the real homeowners. They're victims too. One is a well-known realtor in Oklahoma City. The other is a truck driver in Meeker. We'll hear what they have to say Thursday night at 10. Back to you.
Been very fortunate.
While festivities for a state conference were in full swing at a downtown hotel, sources tell News Channel 4 Michael O'Brien, the director for the Oklahoma Department of Rehabilitation Services, allegedly exhibited bad behavior at a reception where alcohol was served. Behavior that allegedly included the inappropriate touching of some female guests. 2 days after the reception, O'Brien suddenly resigned.
Was his resignation a surprise?
Yes. His resignation was a surprise to me.
We sat down with Jody Harlan, spokesperson for the department, to talk about the allegations that were brought to News Channel 4.
Anytime someone resigns, there might be rumors. They might be valid, they might not be. But I'm confident our governing board is going to consider the information, look at that resignation, make the right choice.
Was Michael O'Brien's resignation forced in any way?
No, not to my knowledge.
Has your department, any officials, including event organizers, received any complaints of alleged bad behavior?
If we had, it would be a personnel matter and something that I wouldn't be able to discuss.
They typically do not
let you know the details of what happened.
Attorney Davis Lane says we'll likely never know the details of the investigation because only the final decision from the state agency has to be made public.
They consider that personnel matters and usually private, not open to the Open Meetings Act or Public Meeting or Open Records Act.
Hi, this is Mike O'Brien.
Hi, Michael. This is Latasha Gibbons with the News Channel 4.
We tried to reach O'Brien several times to address the allegations and his sudden departure.
I would like to talk to you about regarding your resignation.
We did not hear back from him. Well, Kevin, the crash happened last month. The sheriff's deputy walked away basically unharmed. The police officer's wife was seriously wounded. Neither driver was ticketed, but tonight questions remain about who was to blame.
I have a lot of facial issues right now. I have a big cut on my neck right here. I have two.
Courtney Holland was driving southbound on Sunny Lane, getting ready to turn left going eastbound on Southeast 29th Street when she and an Oklahoma County Sheriff's deputy collided. She says she was in and out of consciousness, trapped in this hole in her windshield.
My eyes were swollen shut with glass. I have scars and stitches.
Holland says her ribs were cracked, her nasal cavity split in two, her femur shattered into 5 pieces.
I cry out of frustration because I can't walk. Sorry.
As her body heals, there's something that still stings. The way she says the crash investigation was handled.
And the fact that him and his car were taken away before I was pulled out of the car, I mean, that's just kind of, it's just kind of fishy.
Holland is married to a Dell City police officer, and many officers rushed to the scene. Because the crash involved a sheriff's deputy, OHP ultimately managed the scene instead of Dell City or the sheriff's office. Holland says when she gained consciousness, she was told by other lawmen on site the deputy appeared to have been going 60 miles an hour in a 40 zone and likely caused the crash. However, the collision report indicates that she caused the crash and not the deputy, something Holland disputes.
My Jeep has more wreckage on the actual corner, which would put me further out in the intersection.
She says no officials asked for her side of the story.
So that kind of, makes me question how she came to that conclusion. Normally whenever you have a wreck, the officer would try to talk to both sides to try to make up what happened. It's just hard, knowing that nothing has happened, that he could, walk away from that.
But for her, every step with her walker is painful.
And I have to, I use my walker and my wheelchair to get around, and sometimes, the pain is hard.
OHP tells us out of professional courtesy, they allowed an accident reconstructionist from Dell City to work with their expert. After examining the scene and taking measurements, they reportedly both came to the same conclusion, that Courtney was at fault. OHP also says she refused to speak with them at the hospital, and she was in and out of consciousness, so she tells us she has no memory of that. As for the sheriff's office, we held this story for 24 hours waiting for a comment, and today the department spokesperson pointed out they have an agreement with the Highway Patrol to investigate these types of crashes to avoid the appearance of biased investigations. Linda?
Linda, I did, and that passenger says he believes they were targeted because the officer who pulled them over knew all the teens inside. The family also told us someone inside this building behind me, which is the medical examiner's office, told them today 18-year-old Dane Scott was in fact shot in the back.
Real sad. It's just real sad that they've been harassing us this whole time. Now they finally got the chance to.
15-year-old John Lockett was in the car when his friend Dane Scott led police on a high-speed chase from Dell City to this intersection.
We crashed into the semi, and then Dane took off.
What happened next has a community divided. On one side,
he slammed him, he got back up, and then the officer opened fire as he was running toward the gates, and he stopped for a minute, and then he fired again, and that's when Dane fell.
Several eyewitnesses told Channel 4 they saw an officer shoot Dane while his hands were in the air, his back facing the officer, and no gun was in sight. On the other side, police say Dane did have a gun in his hand, and the officer was forced to shoot.
When Scott exited the vehicle, he did have a firearm in his hand. There was an altercation between the officer.
Suit says they both went to the ground.
When they got back up, shots were fired. We're not going to go into details yet on how many or where. Then Scott did run for a distance from that location where he later fell down and died.
Lockett says this wasn't their first run-in with the officer. We're told that same lawman testified against Dane in court and has pulled them over several times in the past.
He knew exactly who Dane was. This is not the first time, not the second or third, about the fourth, fifth time he's dealt with Dane.
Investigators tell us the boys were pulled over because they believe Scott was driving down a residential street and almost hit an officer earlier in the day. They also tell us Scott has a lengthy criminal past from his juvenile years. The officer involved in this shooting has been placed on routine administrative leave. Reporting live in Oklahoma City, I'm Latasha Gibbons, News Channel 4 HD.